Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at the American Saddlebred Museum. Amy just told me I need to speak louder. We have a fair number of people here this afternoon, as well as we hope a lot of you are joining via Facebook. We thank you no matter which way you're joining us today. We have Avis Girdler, the amazing equine, as well as other all-around natural life photographer, and we are going to learn a lot from her today. We have some of her friends in the audience who I imagine are going to ask some really great questions as we get into this conversation. We're looking forward to that.
Oh, sure.
So Avis, give us a little background on how you got started in photography and how you ended up in the horse world.
Well, I'm a saddlebred person.
Forever?
Saddlebreds, Hackneys, Morgans, that's me. And I grew up in southern Indiana where it was a hotbed of saddlebreds because we had Don Harris there, we had the Effingers where I rode, we had all kinds of people, Michael Richardson's family, Virgil Helm. So I truly believe whatever breed you're introduced to first is what makes an impression on you. And sometimes forms which way you go.
Sure.
You know, usually if we saddlebred people get them in the start, we get to keep them. So that's the main thing. So I rode when I was young, had a horse with Don Harris for a year because of his assistant, who was Marianne Teeter, was his assistant for that year. And she taught so wonderfully, I wanted to learn to teach riding. And then I taught riding for about 8 years, off and on, through college, and ended up at Rock Creek, which I loved, which was a dream. And then I fell in love and went to California and married a gentleman whose family was big in the saddlebred world. And he was making movies. He was a movie director. So that period of time after I left Rock Creek, I learned to take pictures on a movie set. So, and I love photography always, but I never really did it. So when my husband was unfortunately killed in a helicopter crash, I had to decide what I was going to do. Well, my safe place was the horse business.
Sure.
Even though I had a lot of friends in the entertainment business. But in California, the business was pretty good then. It was really good then. And it was tons of fun. And that's why I got all my friends from California now, that longtime friends now. We all went to the horse shows together. But I started when I was just cut loose. I started just going around. So I thought, well, I'll just go to Cynthia Woods, which was a big deal then. And just drive right in. What do I care, So I went to a place that nobody's allowed in and got in. And so she even let me take pictures. She was a real favorite person of mine. And I was real good friends with Gail Lampy and Bob Ruxer, and they were stepped up when I was widowed, and they were very good about it all. And I was living in California. And so I just started taking pictures of Cynthia Woods where no photographers were allowed at all because there's a famous photography institute there, and they all wanted to come there. So she just banned photographers. For some reason, she liked me. And Bud Kinney was the trainer, and then Bob Vessel was the trainer there, and they had fabulous horses, as most people know that can remember back that far. And so she started putting them in magazines. And so then so people started asking me to take pictures, so I just gave them away. For like 2 years, I just gave pictures away. Stupid me.
Yeah.
And people started putting them in magazines. So Bob Ruxer and Lampy said, you need to do this. And so I would go to William Woods and practice with all the kids, which I still do to this day. And have kids from William Woods live with me during the summers. And so many of them have gone on to be world's champion trainers. And the list goes on forever. You all know all these people that are in the business now, and I'm just crazy about all of them and all this stuff. So Bob was the first one that we turned that Sultan loose. And did they ever run pictures of studs turned loose in our magazines. If you go back and look at the old magazines, they're all just stand there, just standing up, nothing fancy, just nice confirmation pictures. And so when people realized that I'd done horses, I taught 100 riding lessons a week, I worked in the barns, then I'd say, could we turn that stud loose? And I'd go take a picture. And so I got known as the person that they would turn their studs loose for, because they knew I wasn't going to compromise their horse. So I had tons, so I just started doing it. I worked for some magazines until Saddle and Bridle hired me just to take pictures. I said, I'll come to work for you if you don't make me sell ads, stuff like that. So anyway, so I worked for them for 40 something years. So, and so eventually it got to where after being out there for 11 and a half years, whatever, I was on an airplane every month. And I was in Kentucky at least one of those weeks working because I was the only one kind of did what I did. Because I was doing both the horse shows from outside the ring and doing their farms and doing other kinds of shoots. So anyway, then one of my roommates who was from Louisville said, you need to move back to Kentucky. And I was just turning 40 at that time, and it was a good transitional time because, of course, we're in the hotbed. We're in our bubble, you know, trying to push our bubble out into the rest of the world.
Right.
So it just got to be wonderful. So the only problem I had was for the longest time, I was the only person that really did this and stuck with it for years and years. And then digital came in. And as some of my friends here will attest, I am not the most technical. I was not raised with computers like your son and all this stuff, and I needed help along the way. So the transition from film, I think I'm basically a better film photographer than I am a digital photographer, but I do love the fact of how many pictures I threw away where there's a fly on a horse's nose.
So do you do both?
No, you can't, I could for fun go back and shoot film, but you really have to, your workflow has to be such. And actually my lab's one of the few labs in America that still processes film. Mm-hmm. And film has gotten really hot again, you know, and all this stuff. But so a lot of these, I want to say to everybody, if you see a picture that doesn't look really, really crisp, it's not my fault. They really are crisp in the real world. But it's just because we're blowing them up so big, and especially the ones in the dark where it's, you know, like Imperator's picture, which is old film, a lot of that old film, you know, it sort of disintegrates and stuff. But basically, everything you see is in focus, I promise. But so when it went to digital, everybody got a camera, and my business was greatly decreased. So I sort of tried to reinvent myself and went back to doing a lot of farm work, even though I was still doing the horse shows for the magazines and all this kind of stuff. So you know, it was a huge learning curve for me, but Amy Dixrock and Sandy Dorsett, two of my saddlebred friends, they really set my business up. Amy did the website, Sandy did the business side of it, and they really forced it on me in a good way, you know what I mean? And they got me up and running doing it. So that was really I really was appreciating that, because I was just out there floundering, wondering, what's a computer?
So when you came to Kentucky is when you really
Yeah,
blossomed.
yes. I did film, digital didn't come in for me, and not very many, in like 2004 was my first digital year, and I came back here in 88. So I had a pretty exclusive run on the market, you know, and I was, you know, it was, you know, and I fly around America a lot. I still go a lot of different farms in Washington State and, you know, up to Caters and, you know, High Caliber and, you know, and Heathermore that I love down in Alabama. And so I still go a lot of those places, but before there was no stopping, you know, of that thing. So, but I had to learn the digital, so I was in the learning curve, and a lot of people were way ahead of my learning curve. I mean, there's so many wonderful photographers now, you know, digital photographers.
We have a lot of them,
We have a lot of
them. In our industry alone.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot. We don't have enough show ring photographers now. We've got a lot of digital photographers, but we don't, you know, I mean, you know, it's hard to compete with Howard. I mean, he's my favorite. Because he can do the farm work and he can do the show work, and he does all different breeds. And people don't realize every breed travels differently. They truck along differently, and if you don't know that timing like he does, it's amazing that he can swap off and be so artistic if he goes out of the ring, you know, which I appreciate. And his dad was one of my two mentors, Jamie Donaldson and his dad. I was in California, and that's where Jack Schatzberg was. And Jack was a tough old guy, but he really, really helped me. If he saw me, and Jamie at the horse shows here, they'd be announcing the winner, and he'd have the thing, and they'd be ready to do the victory pass. He'd say, wait a minute, Avis doesn't have her picture yet. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So they were I appreciate those guys in the middle immensely, because that's really hard work. What they do.
Oh yeah.
You can imagine 20 road ponies coming at you, and you got to get somebody's mad because not everyone got their picture taken.
I don't know how they stay safe.
I don't know how they stay safe.
Yeah.
I don't know how they get the picture. I don't know how they, you know, don't get run over from behind.
Yeah, all the above.
All that stuff. So anyway.
All right, so we've got some talking points, and I don't want to forget any of them.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so tell us about your mentors.
Well, I'm thinking about photography in general. I think of the two people that were my major mentors were Tom Moore and Audrey Guttridge. And you all know about the Audrey Guttridge Award at Louisville, which is my favorite award, and I love when my friends win it, because she ran the World's Championship Horse Show, and she really ran it, even though she was listed as the secretary, but she was a famous horse person before that, and show horse, one of the first great women horse trainers. everything. And she always, she and KK Guthrie, her husband, encouraged me when I was at Rock Creek. And she'd always say, Avis, don't sign a picture that you don't like. Don't, she'd always keep me,
That's interesting.
and they were so good to me. They were so good to me. I remember my husband died, the only flowers I would let in the house was hers and KK's. I mean, that's how much, when I moved to California, they just gave me a one-way ticket and said to come back. They said, now, not that it's not going to work out, but just in case, it's going to sit right on your thing. So if you ever have to come home, you've got a ticket home. And Tom just taught me so much. Here I worship Tom Moore. I never thought I'd be in the horse business that Tom Moore wasn't in there. I worship Tom Moore. And for all the right reasons,
Sure.
and all this stuff. And so when I get to go work for him, I got to know him a little bit, and everything. And he'd say, there's a picture up here and it's really old and disintegrated film of Blue Norther. He's riding Blue Norther and he's up in the saddle. And I'd say, Tom, I love this picture, but you're up in the saddle. He said, Avis, look where that knee is. It doesn't matter which leg is up. It just matters that they're trotting that high. Or he'd teach me, he'd come trotting down the rail and he'd see me and he'd turn that horse's head a little bit, but he'd still keep going straight. He'd say, how's he look, Avis? And he just taught, he just little things, and just sit and have lunch and give me an old picture. He'd say, now, what do you like about this? What do you not like about that? And I mean, I just worship him. I absolutely worship him. So those kind of people, Audrey and KK and Jamie and all them, they just, I just learned so much from them.
Well, I think that's wonderful. That
I mean,
they're mentors
and ongoing mentors, But I mean, like, this is a really old disintegrated picture film, but that's 1983, and it makes a difference. And Rob really wasn't that out of focus in that Boucheron picture. It just came out that way whenever I transferred it. But I really say, people say, what kind of photographer are you? Sometimes sports, sometimes horse, but basically natural light. I don't own a flash. I wouldn't know how to put one on. But I learned how to take pictures by people on the movie set where I would sit and watch them set the lights. So all the lighting was done. So there was no flash lighting when the other still photographers were working while the cinematographers were working. So I never even thought about a flash because I don't like if there's a shadow that's wrong in the background and, stuff like that. So
do you have any mentees, young photographers that
No, but I have many that are way beyond. I mean, I love Stevie. I love Sarah Bennett. I love Rachel Kelly. Those girls are so good. And I laugh about all the time. People always call me and say, can you come tomorrow? I just sold a horse. Can you be here? Or whatever. And in the old days, I could do artistic stuff and do fun stuff and do them looking out the door and do all this stuff. And these girls are doing beautiful pictures, And I'm like, we got to get that in the magazine tomorrow, So sometimes I miss doing a little bit of the creative side, But what they can do between their photography and their computers, they're just geniuses. I'm so proud of those three girls. I can't even tell you. They've stepped up and taken it to a whole nother level. So all the time, and a lot of times it'll be a job I don't want to do, or I just, it's just too much for pain. And I'll say, Stevie, will you go do this? she's like, yeah,
Sure.
And it'll come out 10 times better than I would have done. So,
wow.
So, whatever.
Okay, so you're still just doing what you do. You haven't slowed down at all, have you?
Well, not this couple months, that's for sure. It's, and sometimes in general it's slower, but, am I semi-retired? You feel like I'm semi-retired?
I don't,
But I keep thinking I'll semi-retire and then people call. Right. So I'm just going to keep doing it as long as people call me. That's about, and I love Saddle and Bridle and I've loved working for them and, all these years they're pretty steady and, and all that stuff. But I love all the magazines. I kind of feel like I'm between the customer and the trainer and show management and the magazines. I kind of like do a process. So I understand the problems each have,
right.
I especially understand what show management, what they go through trying to put a horse show on, and I wish sometimes people were more appreciative of what they have to deal with.
We don't always understand. We don't see that.
People don't understand. They just understand when they're in the wrong stalls or their door won't close or they're, But, I really appreciate show management. All of them have been so good to me, most all of them. Some of them are a little dicey, but, but that's beside the
point. There's one in every crowd.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, there's one. But in general, they just, I so appreciate what they've got to do. That people just, what Scarlett has to do, nobody understands that it's a state situation. If you want to have one more, one night, my friend Heather was saying, it was midnight, and people were trying to get horses out, and they were blocking everything. She said, we need somebody directing traffic. And I thought, poor Scarlett's got to go to the legislature to get one more person financed, and she understands, but I mean, it's just like, people just don't know what show management goes through. In the old days, we never had to sponsor a class. We never had to do anything. We just showed up and showed our horses, back of our trailer or a stall. Yeah. And now we're so dependent on the generosity of everyone supporting, So I've had a couple friends that would write letters to the trophy and sponsors and thank people, thank you for sponsoring my class and I love my trophy. And I thought, you all don't understand that. I mean, there's people, as you know, in the museum, writing big checks to keep us going. And I'm so appreciative of that.
Well, we are too, as a museum. We couldn't survive without
the
generosity of a lot of people.
And me too, trust me. Me too.
A lot of people.
I have loyal customers,
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
But I do appreciate all the people that do, I think barns have to have lesson programs now. I think people are complaining about a customer moves from one barn to the next or whatever they do. Create your own customer base. That's how you do it. Don't complain about Academy. Academy's is gonna only bring people happy with horses. Maybe it's the only way they can do it all their life. Maybe they'll be able to step up to a horse,
Either way, it's great exposure to the breed.
Anything exposes the best breed in the world to this is amazing.
I agree.
It's absolutely amazing. So I don't know if I put anything else interesting down there.
I'll let you look at your documents to make sure I didn't miss anything you want to talk about.
No,
I think we got time for questions.
Careful, my friends.
I mean, there's got to be something that somebody would love to ask Jenny.
Do you have a favorite?
Hi, Jenny. How did I get so lucky that you came?
I've been so excited. Mary Sue too.
Hi, Mary Sue.
The answer probably you're going to say no, but do you have a favorite picture?
Okay, so people ask me that all the time, and I'm so glad. In general, it's not very good on here, but Imperator in the Spotlight, because that was back when you couldn't shoot in Freedom Hall. Freedom Hall has the best lighting because they have TV lighting for U of L basketball was put in there. But my favorite picture, and it's on here and you'll see it, is a picture of Joe Friday at Lexington winning, and there's a shadow of a black horse that'll come up here going by. I did not know this horse came this way, and it looks like Joe Friday is trotting out of his back, and it will come up here. And that is my favorite picture. I did not make a nickel off that picture because there was a little dispute after that class, as Heather well knows. Thank you, Nelson. I made no money off that picture. And the horse was sold at that point, and he was going on to other things. But it's my favorite, and I love the horse, but anyway, you'll see it comes up. That's Arabouter, and she's sitting on her bareback. There's lots of macadamia. If any of you have any questions about any certain picture, that's Demonstrator. He comes up a couple times. One of Mary's great pony that I love. And that's my favorite child, Addison Kurtz, with her pony. That is Heather's Corgi. I mean, that's just a picture too cute. You can't deny people to be able to see that. And this is Dr. DeBro with no shoes on. I love that. And that's my dog. I'm sorry. It had to happen. There's a couple. And there's just ones that I just love. This is a Morgan stud up in Maine. I think his name is Sheldon Cooper, actually. And that's Alter the Sun. I had another picture of Danny on Balenciaga. I couldn't find it, that Demonstrator. He's so photogenic. What can I say? That's at Judy Werner's. That's at Red Wing. And this is the old disintegrated film of Tom on Blue Northern. And Boucheron, who was, everybody says, is Boucheron your favorite horse? And I go, no, he broke my heart for 10 years until he won it back. Isn't that right? That's the way it is. And these are just different kids. I love it. That's designed a couple years before he died. I was taking pictures, I turned around, he was speaking. That's Heather's dog again. The Corgi is photogenic. She doesn't love me. But I do lots of kids. I do lots of dogs. I do lots of cats. I do horses. That's the Sedgefields Legacy in the Snow, the hardest picture I ever had to take. That's Uno that won everything with Charlotte. And that's Double Park, who's the Shatner champion Western horse many times. But just cute stuff. That's a Northern Tradition farm. And this one is not that grainy, but that's taken with old film when there wasn't, only because that spotlight came on. That's a 2-year-old stud I did for somebody. And that's a baby of Grace Arnold's. And that's Zoe Schaffel in the background. She's just missing. I just like the horse's eyes. And we love Sandy and her daughter. But, and that's what's this horse in Fortune? True Fortune with Jordan before that. That's Gerhardt's little girl. Isn't she cute? And that's really, really red. who I just loved, and I told Mary to buy her 2 years before she bought her. That Collis, Debris, I can't say it. And this is a weird picture because that's taken at Lexington when the lights went out that night and they only had the emergency light in the back. And that's just surprised me when he won that thing. That's a Dr. Bro baby. But there was no light and I didn't know, I just took it. That's what happens a lot, I just take it, it happens, you know. That's a Morganstead I just did a while back, so Wearies. That's a baby who was in the All-American Cup. I stole that from somewhere, it's got my car. That's the last time I think Daryl showed, right, Tom? Is that the last time? That's Secret Weapons?
I think he went back in the championship after
Okay,
that.
but it was like his last horse
I
show,
think it was
wasn't
his
it?
last win.
Yeah. And that's Nash Vegas, who's got more expression in 10,000 horses. And that's Evie, we called her. And that's High Flame. And we love this of Alexander on the token horse. And these are the two babies of first and second the All-American Cup, and that photo shoot's a whole other story. You know? And Glamorous Nuts, and these are Mary Orr's kids just sitting in a stroller at the Royal. That we didn't plan these at all, but I was glad I had them for her. And that's Jerry Hudson's little granddaughter. These are Cindy Williman's dogs. If you see that on a Christmas card this year, don't be surprised. That's Kristen Cater's cat. And that's Lorenzo, when they sold him, that was the sale ad for Lorenzo. And that's the Sedgefield's Legacy again. He's one I think. And that's my other dog, who I just thought her nose was cute. This is a photo shoot for Nicole Friedman for her Papillons. And that's Rosemarie Wheeler's pony. And that's Vegas Dreams.
Vegas
Moon, yeah. This I just took over a while back, just last winter. That's a Charming Lady, just last year. Isn't that cool? I love that with mud, Rosemary with her pony. But these are all real crisp, I guarantee. That is Chubby Butt, the famous school horse from High Caliber. This is my favorite picture of the year because this is a lovely Morgan that Amanda DuPont just bought. Look, I think this is cool. That's Mackenzie Weary, and the horse always does this. And I said, and that's I'm first. So when you see the picture up front of the horse rearing up, that's I'm first when he was like 3. And I just did this at Stolen Works. This was just the other day. Isn't that cute? But this is Martha Keck from up in Seattle, I think. This is I'm first, which you just saw John Holden on first. This is I'm first when he was like 3. This, I guarantee you, is so crisp you can't stand it. This is Sultan. This is my favorite picture ever, right here.
Yeah.
This is my very favorite picture ever. And that I did for Charlotte because she runs the trophies at Louisville. That's their logo. These are Crumper's Bulldogs. And that's just a senior picture of a kid that rode with Premier. And that's Jim Lowry and a 3-year-old Morgan that was spectacular. And these are Caters. These kids are, that's a photographic wonderland up there the way it is. You know, New England in the fall is always going to be. And those are Amanda O'Keefe's 4 dogs, and I said they won't do it, and she said they will, and they did. And that's Kristen Cater's great dog. And that's High Caliber. But I love kids. I didn't happen to like them before I was 40 and past the childbearing stage. But as Mrs. Miller will tell you, I love children, don't I? I love her child. That's Tom's puppy, the little Hellraiser, Tom Parsons' puppy.
That was the original.
And I just like this because this is the Mittendorf family. But this is Icon. He burned up in the Dragon's Meat fire. These next 2 pictures are Icon. And that day, but it was in a snowstorm, and that was a whole nother story. And that's Georgia Cracker, one of Heather's of my favorites. And there's Boucheron. That was the cover of the Lexington magazine. Yeah, that's Da Vinci Code. Yeah. Was that one Bravo? Was that Bravo Blue? Yeah. Well, correct me quickly on that. This is up at, what's Julie Womble's place? These 2 are up, up in northern Indiana. Country Meadow. Yeah. William Woods. This is an I'm Looking at You baby from the first crop. That was the very first crop. I did the first 3 crops. And that's Mona. She's dead now. That's Mary Orr's dog. She just got a new puppy, so she's all happy. Leafy Bird, who's easy to find. This is Julie. This is Ruthie Gimple's Belgian Malinois. And AJ and his Frisian. And that's Call Me Regal. Am I saying that right? And I love that. This is a Nutcracker baby up in Vermont at Peggy Alderman's. And this picture, which Nelson says is my best picture ever, and I say that was pure luck. Trust me, it's pure luck. That's just holding the button down because you can't plan anything like that. So, the macadamia. So anyway, but I love my job. I'm just telling you, I love my job.
What's the difference between taking pictures of like dogs and cats and horses?
Well, none of them are predictable, but I can predict the dogs better than I can the horses. But I also know sometimes how to, now that I found horse sounds on, what horse sounds are on your phone?
Oh, yes.
Wasn't that, am I saying that, horse sounds?
You
And
use
they have
them-
numbers,
you
and
use
it
them
used to
when
be,
you
how
do-
everybody gets out the whips and the bag whips and all that stuff and the fire extinguisher and everything. Now, like when I do William Woods, I did like 60 in a day and a half students with a horse.
Mhm.
And that's how I learned to be a good photographer. I learned to work fast, and a lot of trainers have me because I'm fast. I don't spend all hour, and when you go to an Arabian shoot, they spend an hour on the ground moving a foot around and doing all this stuff. It makes me insane. I'm like, get it, we're done, But now that we have horse sounds, we just hit a number and that horse is looking for that horse whinnying, and I mean, boom, 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 we're done.
You did that when you did Malaysia.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Yes.
had my attention.
I've said, you guys be ready, because once I hit this, and I've got, I use a squeaker on a dog and stuff like that, but I really do think that when I not invented it, but I started doing some of this, the fact that horses were my number one thing, because I taught riding for so long, I did horses, I took care of horses, all that stuff, because people let me do what I wanted to do because they knew that I knew horses. That was the main thing. So I was, very, very, very lucky that way, so. Anyway, the photographers are so good now, and I'm just not smart with the technical side, as Taylor will attest. And Photoshop, and I'm like, oh. So I took a picture yesterday, and the wonderful customer called. She said, he's got gray gloves on, and I don't like his hat. I'm calling Madge Bass. Madge, fix this for me. And Madge sent back, it was just perfect. It looked like it just had happened. I'm like, oh, I'm such a great photographer. It now takes a village, what I used to do by myself, that's for sure. So I really, really appreciate it. But
Favorite horse of all time to photograph?
Sultan's Diana, easily. Thank you for asking that question. And Judy Werner will attest to that. She tells it also to everybody. And she wouldn't let you near her. She was the meanest. You couldn't touch her. But she would stop and turn and look at me, and her eye was that big. And I should have found an old film picture of her. And you can see why Designed is so beautiful, because his mother. And but every time, in old age, she'd be foundered and still trying to have babies and do all this stuff, and still you go in that stall and she'd turn and look at you and you would just melt. I never saw her with her ears back. And Bert's horse will become this for me also, because I can't take a picture of him with any horse that uses. I always say tack $100,000 onto the price of a horse if they'll use their ears all the time. There's nothing more valuable. They can trot this high. And if their ears are up, there's some division they can go, and Tara will tell you that for sure. We know that, don't we? And literally, that is the most valuable thing about American Saddlebred, that will use its ears. And Bert's horse refuses. He's like Pharaoh. He's like that horse that just ran the flight line. Is that the great horse that just won the Breeders' Cup? Every picture you saw him, he almost went across. But American Pharaoh, he stood there like a puppy. They'd stand there, they'd put 2 chairs and bring him up, and everybody could pet him. And you thought, well, he's not, and he's already producing wonderful horses, But those ears are worth, I would not and cannot sell a picture with an ear back. Would not. Ann Krasinski, the great Olympic rider, who I knew a little bit, she had a wonderful ad for liniment, absorbing whatever they put on horses. And it's the greatest picture. It's in black and white. It's in, like horse magazines and stuff. And that horse is standing there, and she looks beautiful, and his ears are back. And you don't realize, from now on, every time you look at a horse picture in anything that isn't like our publications, because we don't abide by it, but if you look at the ears, and the ears are back, you will not engage with that picture. You will not engage with that horse. So, but I did end up liking kids, didn't I, Mrs. Miller? I like yours. I don't know about everyone, but I like yours. But anyway, so.
Avis, would you talk about, earlier you were talking about you took pictures of stallions when they were younger, and now you're going back while they're older and taking pictures of their
For a while
older.
there, I was, okay, so anybody that advertises a stud, so you have your great picture, you use it for your stud advertising. Perfect example of this is Donna Finch. She has me photograph that stud all the time, because you don't realize that when you're looking through your breeding, who you're going to breed to, blah, 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 And then all of a sudden, you've seen that picture 15 times. They keep using the same great picture of whatever. People will stop and look at your page if you use new pictures. And so for a while, I went back. I can't remember which stud Ed Millett had. We know well. I can't remember. And like I did Sultan every time I came to town. I did. He was my all-time favorite horse, and all that stuff. And so, and that is my real claim to fame for anybody. I got to ride Imperator, which was the most fun you can have with your clothes on, and it was just absolutely spectacular. But I also got to ride his father. So, and I'm the only person that rode Sultan and Imperator. And I jogged Sultan also. And in the year that I rode Imperator, he was the world's grand champion. And Tom Moore said, I want you to ride Starina so that you can say that you're the only one that's ridden both those horses. And I was in California at the time. And I just couldn't get here. And the horse sold. And I was like, oh, I had my chance. But I would not have ridden Starina as well as I rode Imperator. I rode a gate horse way better than a walk horse. She would have been more, he was enough, you know, but anyway, but I really like to get an old stud and take a head and neck shot and make them look pretty, and you know, and that's before Photoshop and stuff. You had to do it on your own. So, but if people don't realize with advertising, you're just gonna look at you know, I mean, we only saw one picture of Wing Commander all his life. Not that we still wouldn't have bred to it. There weren't a lot of pictures of the Callaway horse, you know. I mean, Will Shriver. I can see I'm getting old. Sorry, but he did not take a good picture. He was very hard to photograph, you know. But that didn't mean he wasn't a great horse and a great breeding horse, you know. But still get creative with it. And I just love like to get an old stallion out and try to do something different. But that's the main thing. But I love my job. So I guess, you know, they'll just put me in the ground with the camera.
Talk more about the Imperator ride for people that don't realize the picture on the Facebook event, that is a black and white picture of you riding the Girdler. Would you tell everybody what happened?
Well, there was an auction to raise money in California at the Pacific Saddlebred Association. And quite a few of my friends that you all know got together and raised like $5,000 for me to ride this horse. And I was like dying. And I thought, oh, this was, you know, I didn't eat for a month. I came back and John Biggins and Rob Byers put me on every single horse in their barns practically, everything that, you know, they thought was good. And I tried, but you could not practice for this animal at all. There was no way. I don't care. Every horse you all have ever ridden in your life could not prepare you for riding a horse like that. It was like riding a runaway, well, when he cantered, it was like a runaway train, you know, but controllable, you know. But there's no way, and that tail behind you, I did it in California, the tail behind you could hear it, all 15 feet or however long it was, you could hear it. But so Don trained on the curb bit. I was raised in the Tom Moore, Rob Byers tradition, Dale Pugh tradition of more snaffle and then go to your curb. Am I saying that right? So they told me, said, don't turn that curb loose. Whatever you do, he's right here, you know. So it was just weird. It felt weird, but it was so cool. I mean, I can just relive every single second of it. They had it on TV. It was so cool. And I just rode him, and I think I did well and everything. But the one time I let that curb bit loose, he got into that canter, and boy, he's off to the races. And I mean, and he stopped. There was no trouble stopping him. But you just felt like you were on a runaway locomotive because he wasn't running. He was just cantering. But the power of this animal was just, you rode him on one diagonal. You didn't canter unless you had to. You didn't let the curb bit go. And that was a lot to remember. But it was the thrill of my lifetime.
Do you think anybody will ever take that footage from Dr. Scott's show and make it digital? So
I've got it.
Well,
I've got it in some form. We don't need it. They don't need
Yeah,
that. Have you seen that? Have you seen that?
I
Yes.
Yo, you have seen it. Okay.
Oh,
You
yeah.
haven't digitized it? It's
Huh?
not digitized.
I don't know how you do that.
Well, you get it to
Taylor,
us. We'll
I
get
don't know
it
how you do
done.
that. I got it somewhere.
You
I've
get
got
it
it
to us.
somewhere.
We'll get it digitized.
But it was absolutely, they did let me edit a little bit because I did have, but I'm telling you what, people don't understand unless you ride a great horse like that. I'm sure that's what Bert feels like right now. And let me just say this in passing. I don't really know Bert Honecker except to admire him from afar. I don't know him as a person. I've never shot a picture for him. He's got me in his hind pocket because I love the expression of this horse. He is one in a million. And, you know, it's not, you know, you just can't deny greatness when it's sitting in front of you and you just hope nobody messes with that greatness, you know? That's why and a nice horse is a nice horse. Even sometimes we see great horses that go through bad hands and they still end up being great horses. or they come back to it. And you got to appreciate that.
Sure.
You know, there are so many good horse trainers, you know, I mean,
The
really
chemistry
good ones.
can be different.
You got, you know, you don't need to send the horse to a bad horse trainer. Just, you got a lot of choices of good horse trainers, you know? And it's hard to know. It's hard to know,
I'm sure.
but I do appreciate the people that have been loyal, and I also appreciate when they hire somebody else, because I know that maybe that person's going to get a different take on it.
So what else do you do? Like, I know you go to Mary Orr's camp every year.
Yeah, I work her camp just because we're great friends. I work the camp, and you know they listen to us. And Lampy and I go every year. And it's just a great joy. I love everything about High Caliber because they service every part of the industry,
This is
and
true.
very few
This is
people,
true.
very few places can do. You know, it's a
All that
lot
they do.
just to get your horses worked. You know, and teach a few riding lessons and everything. You know, you got to be just, you know, it's hard to do. But I mean, like I say, like Caters and High Caliber and Heathermore, you know, I mean, I just love to go to Heathermore. Those kids are so dedicated, and it's such a nice riding bunch, and they work hard, you know, and all that stuff. I really appreciate these programs that have lesson programs, and they train their their show horses to the same level, and that's hard to be pulled so many ways to do it right. You know, I appreciate so many people that do it right. And all the best people I know came from the horse business. What, Ashley?
What's your favorite horse show to shoot?
Well, my favorite horse show is Rock Creek because it's outside and it's beautiful. And I taught at Rock Creek, and people that I bring that have never been to Rock Creek and they come and they go, oh, this is just, you know, and it's like a little Devon, and Devon is almost too gigantic and manageable for our sport, but you know, it's just the biggest ring in the world. But just the atmosphere, you know, and everybody's talking, and when the old Lexington, because people don't realize, you know, at the Red Mile, all those people congregated behind those boxes. You all got to see your friends, you know, you got to visit, and that, you know, and sometimes I felt like nobody's, at least at Rock Creek, you feel like everybody's watching horse show because it's right there and you're on top of it, you know. But but I love Red Mile, you know, photographically, whatever the word is, however you say that, photogenically photograph, whatever, Red Mile and Rock Creek are the best. And people say, oh, I want to be inside. What about the weather? But once you take away those outside shows, you're going to regret it, because that is where you attract people. You know, it really makes a difference. But I love Rock Creek. But of course, I get to stay home and sleep with my dogs when I'm at Rock Creek. So it's kind of important, but you know.
I think that's very important.
It is. But isn't it the most wonderful breed in the world? When I go,
We
I
think
mean,
so.
when I go to do other breeds, it's like, except Morgans. Morgans are a lot like saddlebreds. You know, you're like, okay, can we get happy? Can we be a little energetic? Can we, you know, let's do this, let's do that, you know? And it's just like, you know, it's just like stand in one way. And, you know, I just like, you know, and the thing about a saddlebred is they're not patient at all. And if you don't get that picture in the first 10 minutes and you see the people that are trying to take pictures and they're fighting, like when they send a newspaper photographer that gets the worst picture, you know, when you see a picture that runs in the newspaper, they have no idea that the horse's legs aren't doing this, and, you know, and the ears aren't back and all that stuff. And they just, you know, it just makes me crazy because, you know, they're not showcasing them later. But saddlebreds, if you're not done in 10 minutes, then you're the foolish one, not them. They'll give it to you all you want in 10 minutes, but you better be done. You better really
They'll
be
let
done.
you know when they're done.
They will, that's the way to put
Hey,
it.
I know that. I know that from
They
experience.
will
Yeah.
let you know when they're done. So, but
We just did that.
but we need to be really, really good about promoting our breeds as we do here and all this kind of stuff, because there's, you know, when I was doing this all my life, that's all I ever wanted to do was go to the barn. And that's all I did after school or after anything. Kids now have a lot of choices,
They do.
and media makes a difference and everything. So the people, I do feel like the ones that are coming to it, they love it for the right reasons. The kids that stick with it beyond when their parents are paying all the bills, you know, those are the kids that really do love the horses, the ones that want to be there, you know, care about what happens to a horse, care about what happens to it when it's done, you know.
Well, young people have a lot of distractions today that
Yes,
we didn't
and that's
have when we were
understandable.
young.
That's just progress. I mean,
Sure.
you know, you can imagine what the computer people said to the typewriter people. Too bad, too bad. You can quit selling your typewriters because this is done.
Yeah.
You know, and we get nostalgic for things, but not enough to make them huge again. You know. So, but I do love, sometimes I think, oh, I can't do this right, or I get into a situation. But I do like going into saying, I don't know what I'm going to do, but we're going to try something. you know, sometimes I'm just gonna try.
And it usually works, I'm guessing.
I don't know. I'd like to be a little smarter about it. I need a new camera. I'm fighting that because I don't want to buy a new camera. But they just only go so far,
Oh, sure.
you know.
You got to keep up with the technology. I mean, I would assume you have
Yeah,
to keep up with
yeah.
technology.
And that's hard. I'm
Yeah.
not young anymore, but anyway, but this has been tons of fun.
Okay, we're gonna let you ask questions, but if
Anything
you don't
else?
have any more,
You all
we're
know
gonna-
everything. You don't need to know anything.
Everyone's gonna want to talk as soon as the camera's off.
That's all right.
I know.
That's all That's okay. We just love it. I'm based in Louisville. If anybody's looking for me.
You can call me.
I'm
give you
between
our
Lexington and
contact
Louisville.
info.
I'll be back in I'm coming back tomorrow morning to do a dog of somebody I don't know. Somebody gave me as a gift to somebody. He seems very nice on the phone, so.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be great.
So I thought, well, maybe I could go take care of some Bravo Blue before I go home. I
Sounds like a good
love
plan.
those old campaigners. I'd put them in my backyard if I had Heather and Tom, who have the best business plan with Bella Via in the world, do it exactly. If I was gonna start a new career and I was young like them, I would start my resort for famous horses, and, you know, and good horses, and I could just go to their barn and love on them every day. You know, it makes it so, you know, they know why we love our horses, that's for sure. So we're all about it.
I believe it.
Mrs. Miller's not saying anything bad about it. She won't say anything bad about it.
Well, Avis, we're thrilled that you
Thank you
came
for letting
to
me.
stay with us today for
Thank
a little
you.
while.
Thank
It's
you.
wonderful.
It was a wonderful break from everything else. Are you ready? Is everybody ready for Christmas?
Well, it's December 1st, so now's the time to get
December
ready.
1st, you all, I'm just warning you, it's December
Yeah,
1st.
Avis told me I had to choose my
Yeah.
my Christmas
She-
card photo before she leaves here today.
That's exactly
The
right.
deadline is
It's
now.
been shot for a month and people don't make,
Decisions.
somebody called up last night and wanted 50 images for a coffee table book and I was like, are you kidding me? But I got it done somehow, but you know, I'm like, it's not awful yet, but you know, you don't wait forever.
I won't. I told you I'll do it today.
I already picked it. I don't even know what I'm doing.
Well, thank you so much. We love you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciative that
I
you
love my job,
gave us your time.
you know. You have lots of choices, like they say in life, you have lots of choices, but I'm happy when I get chosen.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're exactly right. If you love your job, then I sell horse farms and all kinds of things. Anyway, around here, I go home at night and I go, oh yeah, I go work, you know, because just so blessed to be in this beautiful area. And, you know, I'll stop if I see a bunch of horses, I don't care what breed they are, right across the field. And if you love what you're doing, then it's very rarely exhausting.
One of the biggest reasons I left California, other than the fact that I was living on an airplane, was, grass and water and everything is at a high premium in California.
Sure.
And horses have to be on dry lots a lot. And I said, I am going home to the bluegrass. I mean, that was huge in my world that and the horses were fine. They were well cared for. The horses in training were in great order, but I want to see horses on grass.
Yeah.
And that's my deal. I just think they all need to be spoiled and not forgotten.
Absolutely.
As we totally agree.
We totally agree.
We totally agree.
We totally agree.
So.
You know that.
Well, this has been tons of fun. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.